Hey everyone, welcome back. So as you can see here, we have another pony motor on the bench. This is the one out of the RD-4, number 4G166, the crawler we've been working on here. And this block, unfortunately, is cracked. And it has cracked on both sides. This side has been welded already. So one thing to note in particular on this block is there is no casting number. And I talked with Squatch253 about this a while back when we actually removed it and didn't find a casting number. And he had never seen that before. So this is kind of interesting, being that it's a blank block, but like I said, with it being cracked, it really is just parts at this point. For anyone that is curious, the block should be a 3B1238. And I know I have that other 3B block that we tore down in the previous video. That will probably be my stand-in for this one, being that it is also a 3B style block, should be an early block. I know Squatch253 is covered on this, but both D2s and D4s use basically the same motor. Block didn't change a whole lot. It was a lot of the accessories on top. And those accessories is kind of what I want to go over today, just kind of some of the first generation or first designs of these parts. So I put this cardboard up to try and reflect a little light so you guys can see better here, but this is an early style air cleaner, I believe. If we come down to the book here, or they show the book, shows 4G1 to 4G3693, and then after that it shows nothing, almost like they delete that or switch to something else. Obviously this has the early style exhaust that just exits out the side of the pony motor. And then over on this side here we have this early style breather for the crankcase. And if we go down to the book here, that was run from 4G1 to 4G3693. Now quite a few machines had that, but it is still an early design, something a little different that you don't see, being that this was, 4G166. It's a rather early tractor, so it's nice to see some of this stuff is still on here. Now I did have to remove this. I did remove the exhaust, and I had to remove part of the carburetor in order to access bolts to get this apart. So this is technically just sitting here as is exhaust. Now, I think what we're going to do is just do a top tear down of this. You guys have seen the bottom end between my channel and Squatch253's channel. So I don't need to bore you guys with that, but I do want to do our penetrating oil test that we were always going to do on these head bolts here. We're going to spray each one with a different penetrant, and just, it's not going to be a true test. We're not going to see what actual torque values are, but just kind of see how hard they come off and if it really makes a difference. We have the other head as well. Now this is real world scenario, a bolt that's sitting horizontally. I'm not going to tip it up. I'm not going to do anything. We're just going to spray it on, and if it seeps in, great. We're going to follow the instructions on each can and see what happens. But first, we need to get rid of all this top stuff, and that's probably what we're going to do in this video. We'll probably save the heads for another video. So let's dive into this. So we'll start by taking the parts back off that we had set in place earlier. This is the part of the carburetor I had to remove, and I had to remove that in order to access this bolt on the manifold here. Now there is, I'm not sure if this is a needle or a jet or what this is sticking out. I just made sure to take care not to bend that. So get that out of the way, and this exhaust can come off. Exhaust actually looks pretty good. It's not all worn out. It's not thin. Still a nice heavy piece, so that's good. That should be reusable. And then I actually have to unscrew this, because until we get those control rods out of the way, I cannot pull the base off. The base bolts are off. I was hoping I could get it out of there in the tractor, it didn't work out that way, so it ended up getting removed like this. And the reason I had to remove all this was, again, to get to that nut there, and then also the control rod or your decompression lever was what was the initial hang up, is why the exhaust manifold had to come off. So let's keep going with this. I'll get these parts put away and I'll bring you back. We'll go ahead and get these plug wires out of the way. There's not a whole lot left of them. Spark plug ends. One was still on, surprisingly. There's that. And this spark plug here still has the old screw-on style. Those are interesting to me. I used to just have a fork and screw that on there. But I did go around and loosen all the bolts I could get to just with a wrench, because this governor will have to come off here. This rod here appears to be stuck, so hopefully we can get that loosened up. There's a small cotter pin right there we'll have to get out. And then I did take the bolt out for the mount of the rods on this side, so we can get this out of the way. So I was able to get the cotter pin out of there. A little bit of oil on that pliers I was using, but I'm not able to get this to move. It's all kind of seized in there, so I'm just going to throw a little bit of heat kind of down in here, work that loose. Now for small parts like this, notice you can barely even hear the torch going. I don't want to flood a bunch of heat in there real quick. Just want to kind of slowly bring this stuff up to temperature, especially with that carburetor right next to it. We don't want to get crazy with the heat. Make sure it kind of stays focused where we want it, and we should be all right. So there you can see I got both parts of that fork just warmed up here. And we'll try and see if we can get some heat into that inner part there, break some of that rust loose. It's starting to turn colors a little bit. Looks a lot different on camera than it does in person, I will say that. It looks a lot more red on camera than... Yeah, it's almost faded out now, and on camera it looks bright as can be. So it's not actually as hot as you think it is there, but I'll let that cool. Shut the torch off, and we'll see if we can get it to move. Not too bad. Okay, that is loose there, still a little warm. We'll go ahead and pull these bolts here. Like I said, I already broke them loose earlier. And I should be able to take the whole governor assembly out of the way. Now, okay, so the rod does move. Now it does not turn, so we'll probably end up putting bearings in it. But that means that our carburetor was most likely stuck. Or it could be that this ball joint wasn't allowing it to flex, because that is stuck as well. Once that cools down, we'll see if that butterfly wants to move at all. With the small cotter pin out of the choke rod there, let's see if that would like to come out, and it sure does not act like it. Mind you guys, none of these controls move. Everything is frozen. I think we went over that on the initial walk around, but just keep that in mind when we're taking this stuff apart, why none of this stuff wants to move. So I think I'm just going to bring a little heat back in here just to get it moving. Oh, sorry about bumping the camera there, guys. But with that out, this bottom one does slide through here. I think we can take the whole works. Maybe get this over to the side here so we're clearing that mag kill switch. Okay, and there we go. So switch is stuck, which is stuck in the on position at least, since you're not really supposed to use that in case of an emergency. And then both of these do not move, so we'll have to take that apart later. And with those out of the way, this breather can come out of the way. And I noticed this, I'm not quite sure what was actually rubbing on this. I'd have to go back and look, but something wore the length of this and wore right through that casting number. We'll have to check clearances out on things when we put it back together, make sure nothing was interfering there. Actually, I know what ran right through there. That was the throttle for the diesel engine. I'm almost positive of it. Moving back and forth that many times wore them raised letters off, and those letters aren't short by any definition. I mean, they are very proud, and this is full of oil yet. And I'll clean up my mess here, that oil we spilled. It's a good sign though, it still has oil in it. Hopefully it's not rusty inside. We'll let that rag kind of soak up a little bit we spilled on the table. And now I think we're good to pull the mag. I was not able to get to this inside bolt here, same thing as this one, because we had the manifold and all that still sitting on there. So I will break that loose and we should be able to pull that off, and then we'll, once that out of the way, we'll get both of these carburetor bolts out, get that out of the way, and then we'll pull this top cover and see what it looks like inside. Now before we get that far, not the best, not the worst. It looks like it's had moisture in it, almost a grease. Grab this rag once here. Not terrible, but it's not full of oil. So we'll see what it's like inside here. Brought the whole stud with. It's all right. There's a lock washer back in there yet. Not a lock washer, just a flat washer. So keep that together. Not too bad actually. Quite impressed. Oh, mag turns fairly nice. I don't hear anything going on inside, and I don't feel any resistance like it's doing anything, but those can be rebuilt. Look at the pile of dirt it's been laying under there. Should be some good Wisconsin dirt. So it's been long enough, this has cooled down, and that is stuck, at least by hand. We'll worry about that later, but I am going to go ahead and pull both of them bolts out. I'll just use a wrench here and get them started. This one over here looks like it might be a wrench only. If you look, there's just a little tab above there. I don't know how you get around that. It looks like it has to come off with the carburetor. Okay, so I was right on this nut here. It started to lift the carburetor up, so I'll have to help it along as we go. But I'll bring you back when we pull the carb off. little bit of garbage in there. That would explain why we're stuck. Go ahead and throw these nuts back on here. This is that early style air cleaner. It's kind of neat. You got a little T-bar in there. Pull that open. Let air in. You turn it 90 degrees. Close it off. Since the impact is out, we'll just remove these spark plug wire holders. Put the bolt back for now. I actually think that is a stud and a nut. So we need to go ahead and pull the remaining bolts. This one came out with that control bracket. These two came out with the governor. So we should be able to pull the rest of these. Now I use this 1/4 inch driver, and I like these long 6-inch extensions just because if it's going to break it loose, then I know that they're not that tight. Now I did break these loose with a wrench, and all did break loose. But if this was struggling to take these out, then I would probably go back to a wrench just to avoid breaking them off. And they all came out no issue. It's always a good sign. Bolts look pretty good. I was rocking forward. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss a bolt there, but there's nothing there. Just didn't want to get carried away prying and find out that I'd overlooked something here. It's sitting on a dowel there. I can see it right in here. Well, I think we found our parts donor. These components look a lot nicer than what I took out of that other block. Doesn't look like I'll have near the fight trying to take this stuff out. So guys, I think this is going to kind of wrap this up. Like I said, I don't need to bore you to death with taking apart something that we've already gone through. I have one more after this one to go through, just as a parts unit. That block is cracked as well. I just want the internals out of it. Then I'll probably end up scrapping the block. That one is cracked on both sides. So realistically, could fix it. Not really worth it. It's nothing special. It's not an early block. It's not a, it's just another 5F block, which is fairly common for us to find around our neighborhood. And I know where some parts machines are yet that do not have cracked blocks. But I would like to thank everyone for watching who's following along with this. I do apologize for the background noise of all the birds and that. It is nighttime here, and I like to have the doors open, and they unfortunately make a lot of noise. But, I shouldn't say nighttime, it's more evening. But, I'd also like to apologize for the shadows. I'm working on better lighting in here. Been trying to buy lights here and there. I found something I'm pretty happy with. They're not necessarily cheap to do the entire building. We're looking at about a little over $2,000 in lighting. So it's easier to buy 2 or 3 here and there, and then buy another 2 or 3. And it just so happens that this bench we're working on hasn't had the upgraded lighting put over it yet. So that's why you get all the shadows and that in the background, because the brighter lights behind me versus the dimmer lights where we're working. So thanks everyone for following along, subscribing, hitting the like button. I do appreciate it. It helps the channel grow. We'll catch you on the next one.